Hi everyone, Manuel here. Welcome to the podcast, the Inca. This is episode, I forgot which one it is, but we're here. And today we're here with Todd, fellow pastor at UCM. It's a pleasure to meet you. So Todd, please give us an introduction about who you are and what sort of space you're in.
Yeah. Hey, you in? Are you in with me? There we go. Well, thanks for. Am I talking to you or talking to the camera?
Whatever feels most
All right.
comfortable.
I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Thanks for having me here.
For sure.
I'm excited, a little nervous because I'm not sure. This guy didn't give me any prep, any questions. I don't know what's coming. My name's Todd Statham. I'm 47 years old. I'm a pastor in the Christian Reformed Church, which is a Protestant church in North America. And I am appointed by my church to serve as a campus pastor at UBC's campus here in the Okanagan. So beyond that, I also have an affiliation with the university as the coordinating chaplain of spiritual multi-faith services, which is a unit within well-being and accessibility. I'm a husband, and I've got 3 kids, and 4 cats, and 8 horses, and yeah, I think it's probably enough.
Yeah.
Get going.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think it'd be interesting to share how we met, and it's UBCR has this program called UCM, and it happens Thursdays at 6:30, right? Is that 7?
I think it's a 7.
7. And so yeah, I just showed up, and he was giving
A talk. I was talking.
Yeah, and so I was just very impressed by how articulate he is.
Oh, thank you.
And so I was like, this guy is definitely someone who I'd like to have a conversation with, see what he has to say, and learn about his life experiences. And so we had a quick conversation, and then he agreed to be on the podcast. So now here we are.
Here I am.
Yeah. So my first question is that I normally do on the podcast is just a little bit about like how you grew up, and like a little bit of like just briefly your path of life. Like how have you gotten here?
Here to UBC. How have I gotten here?
Yeah.
I was born and raised on Vancouver Island, which is, if you don't know your Canadian geography, I don't know where your friends are listening in from. Small island, large island actually, off the coast of British Columbia, so it's about 400 kilometers from here. And it was raised in a Christian home. My father's a minister. Small town Canada upbringing, which can mean you might know what that means or maybe not. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. And after high school, I went to university in Ontario and then kept studying. In fact, I've never really gotten out of university. I just stuck around. Eventually did a PhD at McGill in Montreal. I married a German woman. So that took me to Europe, and we spent 6 years of our life living there. And we also spent some time in Central Africa as a mission appointment. I was teaching at a theological university there. And we came back here about 9 years ago. I should say I came back here 9 years ago. For my family, it was the first time they lived in Canada. And one of the things I like to tell people is just for fun, is that we've got 3 kids and they were born on 3 different continents. So we moved around a lot, but we've got a little bit of roots growing here now. And that's a good thing.
Okay, yeah. So
yeah.
My first question about that is, where has been your favorite place to live and why?
Oh, I'm not trying to evade the question, but I would say I've loved everywhere I've lived.
Okay.
There's been good times and very hard times in every place we've lived, but I'm grateful to God for having been able to live everywhere. Growing up small town Western Canada, you usually don't like the place you grow up, but when I look back on it now, it was a wonderful place to grow up. And then going to university in central Canada and some of the big cities in Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal, loved it. Loved the country out there, loved the weather. I loved living in Germany. It was really hard because I didn't know German when I met my wife, so I had to learn it as an adult. And was just submerged in it from the get-go, and was working at the university there. But I loved living in Europe. And then living in Central Africa was extremely difficult at times, and at the same time, just absolutely wonderful experiences, wonderful people, memorable, and happy to be back here too. So I'm not trying to avoid the question. I really am genuinely grateful for all the places we've lived.
Well, that's just a great answer in my opinion.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Another question is, so I have ADHD. So
So the questions are coming hard and fast.
Yeah. So the way I sort of operate on this podcast is I'll randomly ask random out of pocket questions.
Okay. All right.
So
I'll try to reconfigure my brain to handle that.
Yeah.
So I like very linear thinking. You can tell from my talk, right? Like I write things down and they kind of point.
Yeah. You connect thoughts very clearly.
Yeah. But I think if you're a preacher or a lecturer, you generally want to talk that way.
For sure.
Yeah.
And how long have you been giving lectures for?
Well, off and on for the last 16, 17 years.
Okay.
I'm not teaching this year, but I do sometimes work as a sessional lecturer at UBC. I've taught in the English department the last 3 years, teaching a course called the Bible and English Literature.
What's been the biggest thing you've learned from the perspective of a professor?
It's a good question. So first, the kind of shock surprise was that a lot of students don't actually listen to their professors lecturing. So
Get a load of this guy.
It's true. So everyone's got their computer up, but a lot of students are just farting around on it. So I think that hurt at first when I realized that people weren't listening to my carefully crafted lectures. But that said, I've learned so in terms of how you understand the university, teaching is really helpful because you kind of get into the union and you see how all the different units of the university operate. So it gives you a perspective on this big, baggy monster that is UBC, which is this big thing. It's a big institution and it's very complicated. But then I've also learned from myself, especially teaching the Bible in English literature, is that almost all students, whether they're raised in the church or not, have very, very poor knowledge of the Bible. So I've had to start really basic. And in fact, I teach now assuming that your average Canadian student at UBC knows nothing about the subject. Mm-hmm. So they're not well prepared by their churches. They're also not well prepared by their schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you were a student yourself, did you have a problem listening to the prophet at all, or were you always locked in as well?
I was almost always locked in. Yeah. And that's because I don't have ADHD, but I'm also I studied English and history and political science, and I enjoyed probably 90% of my classes. I know there's students that you're in a program and you have to take courses and you might not like them, and you're like, I'd rather do something else. I know that's the reality. It wasn't for mine, and I thank God for that. I really enjoyed my classes.
Out of the people I've spoken to about courses, that's a very unique experience.
Yeah.
So you must really enjoy what you've learned.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite class? Do you recall one or no?
Yeah, I think two stand out for me. With this, I don't know if anyone's really interested in hearing this, but as an undergraduate, two stood out for me. One was an 8:30 class in the history in the philosophy of the Middle Ages, so medieval philosophy. And I remember this class because it was second year class, and it took me about 45 minutes on the bus to get to school. And it was heavy philosophy at 8:30 in the morning. It was when I first started drinking coffee. So my love affair with coffee began in that class.
30-person class?
Oh, it was less than that. I actually don't know how many people were enrolled, but it was probably 15 people showed up for it because it's 8:30 in the morning and it's medieval philosophy. So that was one that stood out, but I've enjoyed them all. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Curveball question.
Yeah, okay.
What's your favorite thing about being alive?
About being alive?
Yeah.
Oh, this morning, I often go for a walk in the morning before things get going when the kids are off at school, and the sun was coming up over the hills and there were birds trilling and a soft breeze, and the light on the horizon was kind of pink and orange. And I just a profound sense of the joy of being alive, of being in God's world, and knowing that He's there and He cares for me, and He cares for the world He's made. So I enjoy that about being alive. at a kind of more maybe that sounds a little too spiritual, but I enjoy my family, my wife, the life we've built, many things.
How exactly did you meet your wife, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, I met her in a bathroom actually. Like it was a unisex bathroom.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was painting the bathroom. So when I lived in Montreal, in the summer times I had a job. I was a student. I had a job in the maintenance of one of the university residences, and I was fixing the bathroom. And my wife, who had just arrived in Montreal with her friend, they were going to go do. They had a kind of 3 or 4 weeks of holidays. They were going to go to Atlantic Canada, and they had rented a room in the residence because it works as a kind of hostel in the summer. And she came in and she had a big water bottle, and I said to her, "You can't fill that up in here because it won't fit in the sink." And then she answered with something, and she had a slight accent. So I'm like, "Oh, she's from somewhere else," and thought she was really cute and perky. So then I bumped into her in the hall a couple hours later, and being the gentleman I am, said, "Oh, I could show you around Montreal a little bit." No ulterior motive at all. But I was at the point I was thinking, "Oh, she's really cute. Like this could be a fun weekend." So I showed her and her friend around, and then we just kept in contact for a year after that. And at that point, we had a really good kind of friendship formed. And so that following summer, this would have been like 2002, I decided I wanted to go and see her in Germany, but I didn't have any money. So I applied to the Church of Scotland, which is the Protestant church in Scotland, if they needed any summer pastors. And they said, "We do, and we'll pay you a little bit of money to do the job, but we'll pay you to come to Germany, to come to Scotland." So I got my ticket to Europe paid, and I stopped in Germany on my way there, and saw her where she was finishing up her master's degree. So that was like this long roundabout way of me pursuing her, and then she came to visit me at the end of the summer in Scotland, and I was up on one of the northern islands, so it was not an easy trip to take. But she came up and visited, and that's when we kind of officially started our relationship.
That's a very beautiful story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, let the viewers know if he wanted to, he will.
Yeah.
For example.
Don't let oceans get in the way of true love. All right.
How lovely. Very inspiring. Another question I have is, if you were able to somehow go back in time and tell yourself something when you were 20 years old, what would you say to yourself?
That's a great question, and I ask that question often of students I know who are graduating, who are wrapping up their 4 years at UBC, and I say, like, if you could go back and ask this question to 19 or 18-year-old self in your first year, their answer is almost identical to the one I would give myself now, which is to really not worry about what other people think of you. Most of us in our first couple of years at university, when we're young, we're just racked with anxiety about how people are perceiving us, and we pretend we don't care, but we really do, and it cripples us socially. It really does. So I still have to tell myself that, because I think as an introvert, I'm often in my head too much, but definitely as a kind of first year university student or as a teenager, like don't worry about what people think.
I love that you touched up on that point, because it's been something that's been on my mind lately as well. I would say, for whatever reason, when I turned maybe 19, like growing up, I've been like a social butterfly, but for whatever reason, when I turned 19, I turned into a hermit shell.
Really?
Hermit crab. Yeah, and so I would just like get anxiety when I like meet new people. Like I would like avoid social interactions. Yeah. It was a reason I actually didn't go to UCM too much in the first term. So, and then one day, I couldn't recall why, but I realized something, that from the perspective of my own brain, I couldn't possibly know what other people are actually thinking about me. And so I don't know if this is like neurologically correct in any sense, but my thought was, if I'm anxious about what other people think of me, what I'm actually anxious about is what I think other people are thinking of me. In turn, I'm anxious about what I think about myself.
Yeah, nicely said. That was a roundabout way of getting at, I think, the core issue.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when I realized that, I was like, what is this do I have with myself? And so yeah, so with some like good reflection, I ended up. It was one of the reasons that I started this 100-kilometer run, and I haven't told the audience.
Here's your plug.
Here's my plug. Yeah. In August, I'm running 100 kilometers to fundraise for women affected by domestic abuse. I'm supporting a shelter in Abbotsford called Sarah for Women, and in Kelowna here, Kelowna's Women's Shelter. And one reason, it was like a minute reason, but still there, that I wanted to do this is because I had social anxiety and I had a hard time speaking to new people, just getting out of my shell, meeting new people. And so, creating a social media platform where I have to speak, recording myself was the most awkward, cringy thing. I didn't know what to say.
Yeah, totally.
But I bring this up because I want the viewers to know, if you can just manage to get one step forward in that direction, it gets easier every time. You get more and more comfortable. So.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. That also reminds me of something else I learned about recently.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with David Goggins? Are you familiar with him?
No.
He's an ex-military fellow. He's an ultra-endurance athlete. And he goes on podcasts sometimes to talk about his mindset. He wrote a book as well. It's called Stay Hard. And one thing he talks about a lot is this thing he noticed, that whenever he does something hard, the next time he has to do something hard is a little bit easier. And then eventually he goes on this podcast with a guy named Andrew Huberman. Are you familiar with him?
That name rings a bell, but I don't know if I've ever read anything or heard.
I think he's borderline a celebrity at this point. He's very well known for neurological science, and so he actually goes in depth with David Goggins about the actual mechanism behind what he's experiencing. And I don't know the terminologies for it, but there's a part in our brain. I don't know what it's called, but what happens is every time that you do something that you don't want to do that's hard, that part of your brain grows, and every time that you don't do something that you want to do, or don't do something that's hard, that part of your brain shrinks. And then he started talking about how it's evidently larger in some archetypes of people, such as athletes, which I found interesting. Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's one of the concerns I've heard raised about the use of AI by students. Here I sound like the kind of grumpy lecturer. Is precisely that, like the brain being a muscle. The more we use it, the more we can attain, the more capacity we build. But the less we use it for hard thinking, the weaker it gets as an organ. And the use of AI definitely creates a kind of indolence, like a kind of brain laziness.
I can attest to this. I talk to chat all the time about like different projects, like decision makings, and sometimes I realize like I'm asking it the most simple question that I'm totally capable of answering myself. Yeah.
So just remember that as you're training for your 100K run. As a student, you still have to train your brain for hard thoughts, for hard thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like when it comes to physical activity, I don't have a problem with discipline at all.
Interesting.
I come from a background of like high performance sport, so I think that might be why. I played international rugby, but yeah, for whatever reason, like mostly academics, most of his classes I don't particularly give a hoot about.
Totally.
Yeah.
The flesh is willing, but the spirit is weak, as the Bible says.
Yes.
Yeah.
Going retro here a little bit. Just before we were talking about public speaking, and I wanted to ask you, what is a bit of advice you would give to the audience and myself for just like getting out of your shell and how to talk to crowd?
Yeah, that's good. So I'm a kind of off the chart introvert. So
what does that mean?
You know, an introvert extrovert.
I know what those mean.
Yeah, like I'm off the chart. Like I'm like very, very introverted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
like if it's a spectrum and this is the middle and this is introvert, I'm like kind of right on the edge of.
Interesting. I would not have thought that.
Yeah, I know. Most people don't, and it doesn't mean that I'm super shy or that I don't like talking to people. I really do. Just that I'm not comfortable public speaking. So it's a good question to ask me because I've had to really learn how to do this. And so I'm going to give my answer in a way that's genuine to who I am as an introvert. If you're an extrovert, like a raving extrovert, and you get off. And
They don't need this. They don't need this.
You're gonna figure this out yourself. But or maybe the basic point is to be genuine to who you are. If you are an outgoing person who can speak extemporaneously, like just off the cuff, and that's something that thrills you and you're good at it, then stay that way. If you're like me though, and you feel hesitant and even anxious about speaking publicly, recognize that, admit it, and then work within those parameters. So don't try to act something you're different. So when I'm a public speaker, like you saw the other night, like I'm not like waving my hands around. I'm not running around the room like I'm doing a TED's talk or something like that. Like I stay in kind of one place, and that's because I'm partly hiding behind the music stand, right? Like it's almost a security blanket for me.
Yeah, now that I think about it, he did not move at all.
Right, right. And I don't have a super animated voice where I don't yell or anything like that. And sometimes people have a really loud voice, and that's for dramatic effect. That's perfect. That would be faking it though. So I stay true to who I am, how God has made me. I write out almost everything I'm going to say. Like I write it out beforehand because I'm an introvert and everything's going on in my head. So I need to put it out on paper and I need to process it mentally before I speak it. That said, I don't then read off my talk, but I have it there in front of me, almost like a baby has a security blanket. Remember when you were little and you had your little blankie that you had to hold on to just to feel comfortable? I kind of need that text in front of me to feel secure in speaking. So I'm not necessarily looking at it, but it's there if I need it. So these are things I've put in place to help me be a comfortable speaker. And most people would say when they look at me speaking, they're like, oh, he looks really comfortable and calm. I have this huge knot in my stomach every single time I speak in front of a group, or if I'm preaching at church as a minister. And I don't then try to repress that. I just realize that's who I am. And maybe it's good to actually be a little bit anxious before a talk, because I think I'm usually talking about something important like the Bible or God or life. Those are heavy topics, and it's okay to be a bit anxious about what I'm going to say. So I go up there, I say a prayer, do my thing, but I really don't try to be someone I'm not. Yeah.
I think my biggest takeaway was your final message there. Very important. Don't pretend to be someone you're not. Yeah, because at the end of the day, if you're gonna be disliked for being who you are, you might as well be disliked for being who you are.
Right. Right. And some people, like my brother always joked, I think he heard me preach a couple of years ago, he said, Todd, you are the most boring speaker I've ever heard. And he's my older brother, so I know he's playing a little bit of a joke. I know there are people who would listen to me like oh, he's kind of flat. But there are other people who would listen to me if I was, flapping my arms and yelling, and they'd be like, oh no, that's theatrical. I don't like that either. So like we do respond to people a little bit based on their style, and we can't please everybody.
Yeah, right. Yeah. As far as the level that your voice goes, I think you've made that work for you so well.
Oh, good, thanks.
Particularly because, as we talked about when we met, your sense of humor is a bit sarcastic.
Yeah, it fits that.
It fits perfectly. Yeah. I thought it was. It was great.
Like you can't be sarcastic and yell. You have to be kind of monotonous.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the delivery is part of that.
For sure. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I'd like to switch train tracks here a little bit and talk about faith. If that's right.
Yeah.
So I have a simple question. What is one thing that you feel like today's generation misunderstands about God? Or about Christianity, whatever your take is.
That they misunderstand? That's a great question. This is where I wish you'd sort of told me in advance.
You know what?
This is my introvert. Like I wish I had this last night, and then I could have thought about it.
Version 2.
I'm just gonna throw it out.
Please do.
We Gen Z, so kind of university-aged demographic are raised in a culture that sociologists would say is a kind of therapeutical culture. We don't think our way through this world, we feel our way through the world. So we're just a mess of emotions, right? And we make judgments and decisions based on what we feel. And this isn't entirely wrong. Our feelings are important, but we often relate to God exclusively through our feelings. And I think this is something I push back on with students a lot, because they'll talk to me about their faith, like, I feel this, I feel that, I feel like God doesn't love me, I feel like God does love me. And my point, and I think is a biblical point, I don't think God is that concerned with our feelings, and our feelings are not a good gauge, are not a good measure of what God thinks of us or believes about us. And this is a good thing, that God's love for us, his care for us, his sense of purpose, his claim on your life, my life, has nothing to do, or very little to do, with whether I feel it's there or whether I'm feeling warm affections, warm fuzzy feelings for God, or great hot love, or I'm feeling ice cold. He's above and beyond that. And it's hard for anybody in Western culture, but especially for younger people, to kind of realize how in some ways insignificant our feelings are in regard to how God relates to us.
We must become less and he must become more.
Yeah, that's like John. Yeah, exactly. That's the good quote from John the Baptist.
Yeah,
we diminish so that he is made greater. So that's something I talk to students, because in a university context, as you can imagine, sometimes students come with concerns about their faith. When I started working as a campus pastor, I always assumed that students would come and say, like, oh, I heard something in a lecture, and now I feel like believing in God isn't very rational anymore, or I have these intellectual doubts. I hardly ever get those questions. So I get concerns from students like, I don't feel affection for God right now, and my response is always like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it'll come back. The main thing though is that God loves you, and it's independent of your feelings of him.
Yeah.
So lean into that. That's good. That's where our identity comes from, outside us, not from inside us. And that's a good thing.
I recently, not recently, it's been like about a year and a half now, I started reading the Bible.
Nice.
Yeah, so the way I grew up as a Catholic, pretty much against my will. I hated going to service because it's very strict. As you can imagine, someone with ADHD, I have a hard time sitting still for more than 10 minutes. So yeah, I didn't like it. And then when I moved to Canada, we had a family who hosted us for a few years. They were called the Bugling. Shout out, love you guys. But they brought us to a Christian church, and instantly, I now understand it to be the Holy Spirit. I just felt that, and so still, even then, honestly, I didn't like going to church because my parents would make me wear jeans. Okay. At the time, I would only wear joggers or shorts, so I just didn't like going to church. It would be like a fight every weekend, and I detested it. But then, as I grew older, I started experiencing hardships, and then I started asking deeper questions about reality, life, existence, and then I came to faith. And then I realized I really need to read the Bible, because when I'm at church, they reference all these things, and I don't always know what it is. And so I feel like now I'm at the point. Yeah, so I feel like now I'm at the point where I'm having a conversation like this, I can reference something that's related. So yeah, I wanted to share that. So
yeah, good for you.
I'm on the last 2 pages of Romans right now.
Ooh, Romans is a
incredible.
Heavy read. It's a heavy read. That's thick stuff.
Yes, my favorite verse from Romans is 8:38. Do you recall it? It's the
Now you're putting me on the test. Not off the top of my head, no.
It's you'll probably recognize it. I'm gonna butcher it word for word, but it's nothing we could ever do will ever separate us from the love of God.
Right.
Not life, not death, etc.
Yeah. Heights nor depths, nor angels nor demons.
Yes.
Yeah. We are more than conquerors through Christ.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a magnificent section of a great book.
Yes, and I find it a lot better to read it having read the other parts of the Bible, because I understand who's writing it and what it means for the people at the time and what it means for us now.
Sure.
Yeah. So what is your favorite part about the Bible?
I was just thinking, Paul in Romans 9 through 11, he's in conversation the entire time with the Old Testament, right? Like Israel and their role in God's covenant, their election. So knowing a bit more of the Bible helps Romans make sense.
Something that just came to my mind that I also read in Romans was that Paul says you no longer live under the, I forgot how he said it, but like the rules of the law. Now you live under the grace of God. And I found that so powerful, because like when you look at the way Jesus taught, lived, treated people, for obvious reasons it was like against like the norm. And yeah, so it becomes like, this reminded me of a conversation I heard. It's imagine this fella A. He's very rooted in faith, and he's speaking with an atheist, and person A, he's like, it's like a public speech, and he's talking about faith, and then the atheist raises his hand and he asks, how can I experience, or how can I know God is real if I've never felt him? And then I'm kind of butchering it. Someone bit an apple. It's like my mind. Yeah, the thing about having ADHD is you lose train of thought.
Yeah, train of thought.
Yeah, but okay. The climax there was like, someone asks, is this apple bitter or sweet? And then the guy's like, the atheist, he says, how could I know? I've never bit the apple. He says, in the same way, you've never experienced my God. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Dang, I totally butchered that.
I like that.
It's part of the reason I'm doing this. Yeah. So we've touched half an hour here. Goes by really quick, doesn't it?
That does go by fast. Yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure having you, Todd.
It was a pleasure being asked. Thank you. I'm honored